Everyone probably imagined or even wished for something else, but the current situation with Bitcoin, to put it bluntly, just looks like crap right now. We opened very, very bearish, but there is a glimmer of hope, and that is, for example, one of many things, namely a huge CME gap that has opened up. I have a very, very, very clear analysis, a very, very, very clear forecast, and this one is going to surprise you. On that note, friends, I'd say let's not waste any time, and we'll jump right into it. And with that, hello, and a very warm welcome to a new video here on my channel. It's me, Max, and today I'm giving you an important update on the current situation in the crypto market, which is looking red. But there is a glimmer of hope, and I'm going to show that to you right now. But before we jump in here, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. We managed to get 545 likes on yesterday's video, so a big thank you to all of you. Plus, we have 200 comments that naturally boosts the algorithm. You see, this video already has more views. So feel free to write "thanks Max" or "great analysis" in the comments. That would really help me out a lot, and please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for your support. But let's not waste too much time now, and I'd say we'll start briefly with the broader context. The broader context clearly shows that we are coming out of a downward phase. We have an open wick up here, which basically means an 80% probability that we'll hit this lower $60,000 range again sooner or later. The market has actually come down from $76,000 to, as of right now, today's low of $67,800. This means that we've been sold off step by step even over the weekend. We did hold a brief consolidation over the weekend, but in the end, it also broke further to the downside. This means we are currently following a very clear downward trend. If we take a look at this, we can see quite nicely what's happening here in the smaller time frame. Yes, we formed a kind of triangle here again, which then consolidated over the weekend and then broke out to the downside on Saturday afternoon or evening. And now we've reached further bearish price targets here too, and retail is naturally screaming, "Oh my god, the big crash is coming now." And just so we're clear, I personally also believe that Bitcoin will go down again, that Bitcoin will see $50,000, that Bitcoin might go to $48,000 or even a bit lower. I am absolutely and completely of that opinion. I easily believe that we'll see a drop of over $20,000 in total before we can really talk about a Bitcoin bottom. Friends, downward phases, bear market phases just take time, and it won't be like we hit the bottom now and tomorrow we're back at $90,000. But I personally am a big proponent of the scenario where Bitcoin can actually manage to get another relief rally up to the $78,000 mark. That's also the reason why I currently still have a strong long trade, or rather 2 long trades open. One trade has now been stopped at break even with profit. Yes, the Ethereum trade is seeing a very strong decline in profits. I'm going to keep this position open anyway, and the trade is of course slightly in the red right now. That's unrealized profit, so it's not a problem at all. Yeah, I just added some more margin here because I'm definitely not going to let myself get stopped out. If the market drops further, I'll just back this trade with enough margin, expand it, keep buying in, run it as a swing trade, and then take it up through the next bull phase accordingly. That means everything there is also going according to plan. By the way, I also just posted the market update for today. I'm giving away 100 USDT under every comment. That means you can win 100 USDT under this post. I'll post the winner of the last 100 USDT right down here. Within a week, the money will be credited to your LEVEX account. The only thing you have to do is use the first link in the video description. Yeah, you can find it here to sign up on LEVEX. There you can also secure a bonus of up to, not $1,200, but up to $5,000. Just register via my link and then, just comment on the post here and you'll have the chance to win 100 USDT. But that's not what this is about. We have trades open, and for me, everything is going according to plan. Of course, it's always hard in phases like this at this point to believe, hey, the market's going to keep going up. I'm not saying the market will go straight up in one line, but I just see a higher chance of the market rising further than falling further. And in trading, in the end, everything is about probabilities. Yeah, trading has nothing to do with feelings or anything like that. It's simply and solely about probabilities. So when I look at the probability, I'd say there's a 70% chance we'll keep going up. I mean, why not? Yeah, sure, we're coming out of a broader downward movement, I get that, but if I look at the lows, we still have rising lows. We haven't made a lower low yet. So here in the 4-hour time frame, you can't really say yet that we're in some kind of downward phase. It's a completely normal correction so far, yeah, within an uptrend. We clearly have, if you look at it, higher highs and higher lows, and that's a textbook uptrend. But I know that all the retail traders, of course, tend to see this movement instead. But it was the same back then when we had this movement here. Everyone was screaming, oh my god, the market's going down, it's going down, it's going down. Yeah, and when the market was at the bottom, around $65,000, everyone said, oh, it's over now. Yeah, and what happens then? Then, of course, comes this unexpected pump. And I personally can imagine that we'll see another pump like that. We can also represent this with the bar patterns. They should be here. Exactly, we can show how something like that could look in the future. And then we see, if we just apply this movement we had here again, we'd reach a price range I've been shouting about, $78,000, and that would be by March 31st. That would be next Tuesday, if we indeed see such a strong upward movement. And I don't think it's unrealistic at all that we'll see a movement like that. Of course, friends, I'm not going to bet all my money on it now. Unfortunately, far too many people do that in trading and lose money because they have one scenario in mind, for example, that the market will go to $78,000, which is fundamentally a valid prediction. But the probability is also, as I described here in the market update, just 70%. And 70% is a high probability that we'll hit $76,000, $77,000, $78,000. But it's just not 100%. And if I make my entire financial success dependent on Bitcoin going to $79,000 now, then I'm obviously lost, because if that doesn't happen, I lose all my money and that would be absolutely pointless. That means generally in trading, always maintain a good risk-reward ratio and don't make it dependent solely on one single scenario. It makes no sense to say, if Bitcoin goes to $79,000 now, then I'll make a fortune, but if it then just goes down and the market crashes directly, then I'm bankrupt. Yeah, for me, that would ultimately mean I'm hedging my trade. I wouldn't even make a loss that way. That's how well I'm protected. And in the worst case, I'll just let myself be stopped out by the stop loss. I think we've realized over $10,000 in profit in March, or with the pullbacks now, maybe $6,000 or $7,000. In any case, a lot. If I take a stop loss of $2,000 now, I wouldn't care at all in the end. That's just how it is in trading. You don't win every time. But if you ask me, I see a very clear trend here first, and this trend is upward. Quite simple. There's nothing to argue against that. This trend is upward. Of course, what we're seeing here right now is more of a bearish consolidation. That's very clear. But if you look at it in a different way now, let me just clear all these things out for a moment. Yeah, then we clearly see we have a triangle here. And here comes the big but. If we represent this a bit differently now, because you could also go and say, hey, the triangle might be invalidated because we've broken through it once, twice. We do recognize the resistance here. Yeah, but we don't really pay much attention to this triangle. Then you could also go, yeah, and say, yeah, we have a kind of rising wedge here, for example. That means we might be forming a larger rising wedge here now. That means you could expand the whole thing here, and now a rising wedge emerges right here. You probably don't see it that clearly on the 4-hour chart, but if I go into the 12-hour time frame now, I see that a beautiful rising wedge emerges here. And that will naturally lead to a downward phase in the end, consolidating in a rising wedge. The probability is already at almost 80% that this thing will break out further to the downside. But it doesn't have to break out right now. It can, of course, with a low probability of 30%, break out directly to the downside now. There will also likely be valid reasons why it could break out directly to the downside. Personally, though, I say I believe we'll see another very, very, very strong bull trap before the market breaks out to the downside here. I think it's just a bear trap where people are being lured into short positions right now. Then the market will push up a few moves, maybe do the fake out up here, then we're at $78,000, and then let the market drop down. I can imagine seeing a scenario like this and just staying in this rising wedge a bit longer before we finally break out. Of course, I don't necessarily have to be right about this, and if I'm not right, I would also be running in a drawdown for a while. I wouldn't lose any money in the end. But what I want to tell you is, please friends, don't put all of your money on just one single scenario. Because even if you're right 100 times, that one time you're wrong, you will always lose everything then. Then the whole thing doesn't do you any good. Therefore, always keep an eye on your risk-reward ratio there. But personally, I don't think such a scenario is unlikely at all. Fake out up here, and then the breakout to the downside. Yeah, I don't think the market can already start making such a strong new move right now. And I just think it's a bit early for the market to break further down. But of course, the whole thing can happen. If you ask me about probabilities, I'd say there's a 70% chance that the market will now continue to go up and then start the big crash move down from up here. And then we'll see the last final crash once. And that's not a scenario that's somehow strange, but also in the last quote-unquote bear markets, if you want to take a look there, we've always seen the craziest crashes just before the end. Yeah, for example, this crash here, which then went down from $31,000 to $17,000. So we fell by almost 45% here. Yeah, and here too, if you take a look at this, we also had a triangle consolidation first and then kept going further up. Yeah, where everyone thought, hey, now it's going further up. And then in the end, the market naturally gets knocked down further after all. That means in this bottoming process, that's going to take some time. I don't think that we've already reached the bottom yet, but I also don't think that we'll break out further to the downside immediately. Please, friends, I'll repeat it once more. You shouldn't make your financial success dependent on this right now. For me, this is just one trade out of many. I'm happy, as you can't even imagine, if the market goes further down, because I can just continue to buy Bitcoins very, very cheaply all the time, because I have the vision that Bitcoin in maybe 5 to 10, 15 years will be worth $500,000 to $1 million, and then of course I can sell my Bitcoins that I'm buying for $67,000 much more expensively. There will naturally continue to be very, very much potential in Bitcoin. Just the last few years, when Bitcoin was already on everyone's lips, there was still very, very much potential. Please don't forget that here either. But friends, I'm telling you, you definitely have to be careful. If I take a look at Bitcoin on the 1 hour chart, I also see quite clearly here that we are, of course, continuing to consolidate downwards for now. But this move, why I also assume that we'll go up first, is that we're definitely forming a bullish divergence here as far as this is concerned. Yeah, the market wants to go up. Yeah, we just don't have the strength in the market right now for it to come up. But exactly in these situations where nobody expects it, the market usually turns. That means when it looks totally bearish and totally obvious that the market is going to drop now, usually exactly the opposite happens. Of course, if I trade purely based on chart analysis, I'd have to say that the downward move is coming now. But since I trade against the retail, I position myself exactly against it and say, no, we'll see an upward move first. And when the retail then screams during the upward move to the upside, hey, now it's going up, then I'll just go short because I trade against the retail and have been doing super successfully with that for years. But now let's look at a few other important indicators, specifically the CME gap. Yeah, I don't know who's seen it yet, but friends, what exactly is this here? Yeah, we have a massive CME gap here that we haven't, well, filled yet, but we started to fill this CME gap and then got rejected from there. But we have this incredibly huge CME gap that's larger than all the other previous CME gaps. This CME gap is now $2,000 wide. Yeah, and we still have an open CME gap up here at $74,000. Of course, we're in a downward phase right now, but personally, I just assume the market will make another move up, and that's how I'm positioning myself. Why am I telling you that the market is gonna move upwards? Quite simply because I strongly believe that's what will happen here, because I'm trading it and because I'd sell off all my assets up here. That means I'd sell Bitcoin and Ethereum up here to then re-enter much cheaper down here, because if the market drops from up there to $48,000, that's the final 40% crash. I'll avoid that, and then I'll get back in down here accordingly. And by the time we're back up here, instead of being 40% down, I've made 71% profit. Yeah, instead of putting in 100K at 77 up there and only having 60,000 left down here after a 40% drop, I'd rather sell up there, re-enter down here, and then have 170,000 instead of 100,000 if I manage it properly. And that's just my strategy. If I'm wrong, then that's just how it goes. Losses are absolutely limited. In the end, I can't really lose much more. Yeah, and that's just how you position yourself in the markets. A quick look at Ethereum also shows that we're sitting right on support here. We're in a clear upward formation here as well. Of course, if we start to break this level and push through, then we're talking about a downward phase. And if we break this level on Bitcoin, then yes, it's a downward phase, but not yet. And as long as that hasn't happened, I won't be positioning myself bearishly. I'd say, my dear friends, use the first link in the description to go to LEVEX. So there you'll get my exclusive trading signals and a very, very massive deposit bonus plus VIP 5. That gives you the lowest fees, cheaper than BitGet, Bitunix, and all other crypto exchanges. On that note, friends, give a thumbs up, leave a comment, and let me know your thoughts below. See you. Until then, bye.